Hello there, welcome to Venture Capital with me, Katie Pilbeam. This week we preview the G20 summit that's coming up in St. Petersburg, finding out what's on top of the agenda for that one. Plus more scandal in the Potash War. We have the CEO of Uralkali snatched at the Belarus airport this week. More details on that one. Plus corporate news on the way and checking in with Mr. Sean Thomas, seeing how much money he's got left over from his 10,000 US dollars. But first, the uncertainty over Western military action against the Syrian government this week resulted in turmoil in the financial world, with oil spiking to a 6-month high and investors pulling out of global equities, with concerns that an attack on Syria will bring about serious consequences and threaten global supplies. Meanwhile, safe havens, gold and US Treasuries surged as investors proceed with caution. So for more on the market's reaction to the political rhetoric over Syria, I'm joined by Mike Ingram from BGC Partners. It has been a tumultuous week for the markets. There's been a lot going on. Can you just start off by telling me the general thoughts, the anxiety? What is the general feeling in the financial world at the moment in response to what's happening?
Well, I mean, I think, the prospect of the West getting embroiled in what is at this stage a Syrian civil war has just really added to troubles that the market's been having over the last few weeks, and it's coming against the background of very thin summer volume. So the reaction is probably a little bit more dramatic than it might otherwise be. But if you look at the list of concerns that the market has at the moment, you've got a situation where we don't know what kind of form the Fed tapering is going to take this year. We've got possible succession issues from Ben Bernanke, but succeeded probably by Larry Summers, it seems, at this point at the Fed, and we've got actually ongoing trouble elsewhere in emerging markets.
SocGen has come out and said that we could see, if we do indeed see the situation in Syria escalating, we could see an oil price of $150 per barrel. Can you explain to me what pressures, if that was going to happen, what pressures that would put on the global economy?
Well, it would have a massively detrimental effect on growth pretty much everywhere. There are very few beneficiaries. As you can imagine, those few beneficiaries are going to be the oil-producing states in the Gulf, probably Nigeria with Africa. But for pretty much everywhere else, it's bad news. Even for Russia, it's broadly neutral. Generally speaking, the countries which are going to get hit the hardest are those with large, relatively inefficient manufacturing bases. On top of that list, India and China. India's already struggling. China has got a relatively competitive currency at this point in time. The last thing it needs is an oil price shock. And of course, that has a knock-on effect into broader patterns of consumption. If, as in the UK, disposable income is already being squeezed, then that's likely to have knock-on effects on the broader economy. Retail trade is likely to be down. Taxation revenue is going to be down on the back of that. Budget deficit is going to be high. So yeah, there's a second round effects, third round effects. I mean, the list is pretty much endless here. So yeah, it's not good news. I have to say though, as I said before, the industry which is the most impacted are things like steel production, aluminium production is incredibly energy intensive. These are just the sort of things which are going to drive the costs of these companies engaged in these activities sky high.
And let's talk about gold then, because it's been an interesting week once again for gold. We've seen it surging. Is it still, in these times of uncertainty, the investors flock towards gold? Is it still the ultimate safe haven? Do you think that's been proven this week?
I don't think gold has been totally rehabilitated. I mean, gold is now technically back in a bull market. It's about 15% up from the lows that we saw at the end of June, but it's still down 15% from where it started the year, and it's still down 25% from where it peaked last year. My view of the recent activity on gold is that it just got to the point where it was so cheap that people thought, well, am I going to be adding to positions? And I'd have to say that sort of $1,200, $1,250 an ounce level, a huge chunk, over 50% of global production just gets taken out. So there's good fundamental support there. There may be some upside from current levels, but it doesn't look like it's going to challenge $1,900 an ounce anytime soon.
So the situation in Syria, again, just adding to all of the tumultuous behaviour on the market. So Mike Ingram from BGC Partners, thank you so much for your time. The The greatly anticipated G20 summit hosted by Russia in St. Petersburg kicks off this coming Thursday with the theme of growth and employment. There are great expectations that the summit will result in prescriptions for boosting the health of the global economy. So I caught up with the head of the Russian delegation, Ksenia Yudayeva, to get a better idea of this year's aim.
The main message is as follows. Well, of course, global economic situation now is better in many directions than it used to be before, even a year ago. However, there are fundamental problems which have not been solved yet. This is the problem of economic growth in different parts of the world. Both kind of cyclical problems, but also fundamental problems of finding new sources of growth, attracting investments, stimulating investment, finding new sources of financing for investment, attracting private capital, even in those types of investment where normally government played major role, given fiscal stability concerns, which we all have. And well, second related issue is also not just short-term, but long-term and medium-term financial and fiscal stability. Have we done enough?
And now moving on to some corporate news then. We're going to get started with the Max Air Show. It took place this week just outside of Moscow. Now, the deals. United Aircraft signed contracts worth $12 billion. Bombardier, meanwhile, will sell 50 planes to Russia, a deal valued at $3.4 billion. And VEB Leasing purchased 6 Sukhoi Superjets worth a total of $217 billion. And Aeroflot's budget airline will begin operating next year. It's unveiled its first destinations. It will fly from Moscow to Kaliningrad, Sochi and St. Petersburg. For the first 2 years, the discounter will operate only along the most profitable routes in the European part of Russia. And pharmacy chain 36.6 gained over 10% this week after selling its controlling stake in drug maker Verapharm to Forbes' 69th richest man, Roman Adiev, for 5 billion rubles. Verapharm itself also climbed over 10%. One of Russia's most powerful, richest men, the head of potash empire Uralkali, was snatched in Belarus airport this week by authorities. Now, Mr. Baumgartner, the first hostage in the Potash War, was detained and put in handcuffs after visiting Belarus for a meeting with the country's leader. Now, he's accused of abusing his power in the partnership that collapsed between Uralkali and the Belarus partner, Belaruskali. Now, before the biggest potash cartel collapse, these two companies made up over a third of the global $23 billion industry. Russia's reaction to this scandal is clear, with the Deputy Prime Minister describing it as odd, inappropriate and not fitting to a partnership. But considering the president of Belarus styles himself as Europe's last dictator, the chances of escaping the country could be tricky. And if Mr. Baumgartner is found guilty of abusing his power, he faces a 10-year imprisonment with a confiscation of his property too, potentially millions. And the next target in the potash wars is Solomon Kirimov, a major shareholder in the Russian chemical producer, after the Belarusian authorities revealed they now want to arrest him. Hello, Mr. Sean Thomas. You are in-house investor here at RT. You've got $10,000 at your disposal. We want to know what you've been up to. You've been doing it a month now, so we want to know how much money you've got left. But first of all, before we get into all of that, the details of it all, what's your opinion on this Uralkali debacle that's going on at the moment, the scandal of it all? It's unbelievable.
Katie, it's absolutely crazy. We've got corporate price fixing, global espionage. We have whoever thought there would be a fertilizer cartel and even an enraged president, the last dictator of Europe, self-proclaimed, by the way. It all has the makings of a cinematic thriller. I think that we should get to work on writing that script.
It really does. We should. And we need to star in it as well. I want a starring role. Whoever knew that potash could be so interesting? Normally it's gold and oil and get all the headlines, but now we're like, potash, whoa, what's going on? Goes over there, business meeting, gets snatched on state television in his handcuffs, all going on. It's even getting messier and juicier as we go on. So watching that one, big time, but we're also watching you. How much money have you got left? What have you been up to?
Well, you know, it's overall I'm down, and we'll get to that here in a second. But this past week we were focused on oil and airlines, specifically Aeroflot. And kind of great news. Oil has gone up. I've done really well, kind of recouped some of my losses. But because oil has done well, Aeroflot and the airlines have not done well. So it kind of hindered my progress there because, you know, airlines, they need fuel to get those jets up in the air. And so the price of oil going up means that the airlines don't do well themselves. So if you look at the $10,000 that we initially started at, and by the way, this is a good reason to show people why they shouldn't follow me, because I am not an expert, just kind of an armchair investor, if you will. But we started off with metals. I was really excited about metals. Lost $2,369, which brought me down to $7,639-ish. Not really feeling good about that one. Then I decided to go into oil. That did well. It kicked me up about to $8,825. So I'm down $1,175 from where I started. But basically, really glad I got out of the metals. I'm hearing that even gold isn't doing too well, so it was the metals that killed me in this this beginning stretch.
That was a real beating. I remember that one. Bad first week for you. And it's so interesting when you talk about oil, because obviously I was chatting to Mike earlier on, and sad as it sounds, there are some gainers in all of this, because it has been surging. And you're one of the gainers in that. What have you got planned for next week then? What's up your sleeve?
Well, I'm in the mood to get back to where I started at least, and maybe make some more. So I'm going to stick with oil, because if you look at what's happening in the news, this is where I get my information. Syria means oil prices are going to continue to go up. People are going to continue to watch that, continue to conserve and save. I think that that's the way for me to get my money back. And if I do break above that 10,000 mark, I promise you, you and I can go somewhere on this Aeroflot budget line that we were looking at from last week, and the tickets are on me if I make something, if I recoup my losses.
That's extremely generous of you. You're splashing out on budget airline tickets for me, Sean. You are a ladies' man. Thank you very much. And I like the fact that you're clothed this week. You've got all your clothes on, because you have been losing them nearly. But where are your glasses?
Yeah, indeed. Well, they broke, so I am without glasses, sans glasses, if you will, and I'm waiting to get some of those losses, you know, erased and make some money before I get them fixed. Right,
so you're going to get a nice snazzy pair. We want like a really funky, maybe red pair or something.
I'll go out with the bling bling.
On. Bling it up for us. Our in-house investor, Sean Thomas, soon to be blinged up. Thank you very much, and good luck next week. And it sounds like you're going to stick with oil, so.
Indeed.
And that's all for this edition of Venture Capital. Next week, I'll be filming from St. Petersburg for the G20 summit. So join me then. Bye.